Arsenal 2, Newcastle 1, and Gabriel's late winner for Arsenal has blown a massive hole in this title race. Last week we were thinking Man City, Arsenal 1-1, not enough on the front foot from Arteta. A week later, Liverpool have lost, Arsenal have won, they're 2 points behind them, and that is a huge statement in the title race, not forgetting the massive amount of controversy to unpack in that game. It's been a horrific weekend for the PGMOL, VAR and officiating. But ultimately, the final score is Newcastle 1, Arsenal 2. With 10 minutes to go, it's 1-0 to Newcastle. A good goal by Voltemeda. But Arsenal scoring 2 headers. Gabriel with the winner. Should it have been a penalty a few minutes before that, it could have been 2-1 to Newcastle. But you can see the players going off the pitch. They're absolutely elated by that. It's such a big result for Arsenal. And let's not forget, they've only lost one game to a worldie at Anfield by Szoboszlai. They drew with Man City. They've been to Old Trafford and won. They've been to St James's Park and won. In their first 6 games, they've had 3 really difficult away games and Man City at home, and they're only 2 points off the top. I think Arsenal will take so much mentally from that game because maybe a couple of years ago, you get a penalty, it gets overturned, you have a worldy performance from Pope, Newcastle score a breakaway goal, you end up losing the game and you're like, oh, woe is me. They've come back against all that obscurity and still found a way to win it. And that is what you need to do if you want to win titles. And I think that's why it's such a big message from Arsenal. And what we're seeing from Arsenal as well is the depth in the squad. You know, Eze plays today, makes a big difference. Odegaard comes on, makes a big difference. Martinelli, Saliba, they've got so much depth in that squad at the moment, despite some of the injuries they've got to key players. So, huge win for Arsenal. But let's talk about the controversies. I think the 2 big controversies are going to be the penalty decisions. We've had a really strange weekend. Yesterday, they rewrote the rules. Nathan Collins should have been sent off against Man United. They made it up that he wasn't. Brighton should have had a penalty. Did Salah handball it? And then today, we get a penalty for Arsenal, Gyökeres. And I think it was a penalty, by the way. And VAR decides they're going to re-referee the game, which I would add is absolutely incredible to do that, because when you watch it back, Gyökeres gets there first. Nick Pope's not even looking. Even if it touches his foot, he's not making a genuine attempt to win the ball. And then Gyökeres is taken out. It's a penalty. The referee gives the penalty. And then for some reason, VAR, against the guidance of the rule book and Howard Webb, decides to referee something that is not clearly and obviously wrong. So it should have been a penalty to Arsenal. It wasn't. It was overturned and there was an injustice there. As for the Gabriel handball, I personally don't think it was a handball. I don't. I think you see his hand in the air and you go, it looks like he's hailing a taxi. He's blocked the cross with his hand. We've seen it before. We've seen it this season. That's going to be a penalty. But then you watch it and you go, well, he's actually sliding in to make a tackle on Elanga. And if anybody's slid in to make a tackle, your hand's going to be in the air. It's a natural position. So if he actually makes any contact on the tackle, you can't really give a handball, although in Europe they do. And when you watch it, he does actually make physical contact with his foot on the tackle on Elanga, and then it flies up onto his hand. So I think, in my opinion, I think that's a harsh penalty. Some people would say, no, it hits his hand, it's a penalty. Now, what I have said, and I will repeat it here, I was saying this on the Bundesliga watch-along on Friday, personally would be more comfortable in the Premier League if it hits your hand, it's a penalty. Because you're going to get you're not going to get inconsistencies. You're going to get harsh calls, but I personally think if it hits your hand, instead of being subjective and figuring out whether it's a natural body movement or whatever, I think that should be the case. But that's not the rule. So I don't think it was a penalty in my opinion. And Newcastle fans and people who don't like Arsenal have got every right to moan that should have been a penalty. The flip side of the coin is that Arsenal should have had a penalty as well. So, look, ultimately, the officiating was a little bit strange. There was talks of maybe a second yellow card for Calafiori for pulling the shirt. I don't think you can use VAR for that. I don't think you can use VAR for a shirt pull and a second yellow card. So they can't get involved in that. I think you've got to be, even-handed. But the game was not without its controversies. So that's what I'm trying to say. Ultimately, I remember a game like this a couple of years ago at St James's Park where, funnily enough, Gabriel got a push in the back. They scored a goal. Arteta went mad. He was moaning about VAR. Arsenal finished second that season. This season, controversies, penalties, potentially red cards, pushes in the back, but it's Gabriel who wins the game for Arsenal at the end. And I think that's almost the difference between winning titles and not winning titles. You know, being a victim but finding a way to become the winner. And that's what Arsenal have done today, whereas a couple of years ago, we obviously saw that they weren't able to do that. I think it's such a big win. And, you know, let's not forget, Newcastle have only got 6 points from 6. I refuse to see that Eddie Howe is a bad manager. I don't think he is, but that's a little bit of pressure on him now as well. So, sorry, I'm cutting here more than a bloody Tarantino film. I just got a tickly throat and I'm trying to get through this video. But Newcastle have got their own problems there. 6 points from 6 is not good enough for them. Bit of pressure on them. But I think from Arsenal's point of view, to be 2 points off Liverpool, 2 points off the top, after all the games they've played, I think they can be really happy with that. And I don't think there's any such thing as easy games in the Premier League anymore. Certainly not. But when you look at their next 5 Premier League games, they're all against teams you'd expect them to win. I think their toughest game is probably Palace at home and Sunderland away. So Arsenal are always going to be a ridiculously hard team to beat. So if they can stop and get rid of the silly draws against the Evertons and the Brightons and turn them into wins, they've already been to St James's Park, like I said. They've already been to Anfield. They've already played Man City and they've already played at Old Trafford, which, you know, I'm not saying Man United are a good side, but they won there. So I think Arsenal are in a really strong position, and psychologically, I mean, I predicted Arsenal are going to win the league. It's still way too soon to be saying, I told you so, I told you so. But I think the big thing for me that impresses Arsenal is results like that. The big thing that impresses me about Arsenal is that was a real kick in the nuts, the way they lost to Liverpool in such a big game, but they bounced back by staying unbeaten in circumstances where they may have lost to Man City but got a late equaliser, where they may have lost to Newcastle but got a late equaliser and a late winner. It shows a mental attitude to stay in the game, to not be defeated psychologically. So I think Arsenal move into a phase now where it's about, can they now go and win games they're expected to win? That's what the squad's there to do. Arteta got his substitutes right, but yeah, it's a massive win. Massive win for Arsenal. And I think we've got a title race on our hands. I really, really do. Liverpool losing yesterday. They go to Chelsea next week. Arsenal, I think, have got West Ham at home. So, yeah, it's great. It's really great what we've got going on. And, you know, long may it continue. But look, keep an eye on Newcastle. It is a bit of pressure for them. I was just going to have a quick look at what their next games are. Man of the match for me was going to be Nick Pope, by the way. They've got Forest at home next week. Yeah, man of the match for me was going to be Nick Pope. But in a way, I think it's got to be... I don't know who it is. You know, I thought the Newcastle centre-back played well as well. Do you give it to Gabriel, winning the game for them at the end? Declan Rice, I think, got 2 assists. You tell me. Get in the comments. Smash a like on the video. I'll speak to you on the next one.